Okay, so today we will have worked on putting slope-intercept to standard form and standard form back to slope-intercept form. Tomorrow we're going to focus on what they're called literal equations, manipulating literal equations. And literal equations are basically equations we already know. If you looked at this one, you should guess that P stands for perimeter equals twice the length plus twice the width. This you might not be too familiar with. This is the area of a trapezoid. So you have to take half of base 1 plus base 2, because if you remember, if we have the trapezoid shape on here, doesn't look like it. If you have a trapezoid, this is going to be bad. I'll try it though. Trapezoids can look different ways, but this is kind of the one you're probably remembering. And the base is where the height meets the base at a right angle, okay? And the height has to be a straight line that's perpendicular. So this is just a side here. This is actually your height. So if you look, the height is perpendicular here, which is a right angle, and it's perpendicular here, which is also a right angle. So trapezoids have two bases. This is base 1. This is base 2, and this is its height. Should sound familiar from before, but there you are, okay? So anyway, it's these two bases added together. Half of that equals the area. And then you should recognize this is the area of a triangle. So when you get these types of problems, they're going to tell you to solve for a certain variable. So this one might say solve for L, okay? And so what we have to do is we have to isolate L by itself. So looking at that, I've got two things for L. L is here, it's being multiplied by 2, and it's being added to 2W. And you should remember we need to get rid of all adding and subtracting first. So the opposite of 2W is minus 2W. That gets rid of my width, my twice my width, that's 0. But then I must subtract it over here as well. And these are not like terms. This doesn't have a W, this doesn't have a P. So I'm going to rewrite this over here. So this becomes P minus 2W equals twice the length. And then to get L by itself, the opposite of multiplying by 2 would be dividing. So when I divide by 2 here, that crosses that off. And then I can divide this by 2. So the length in a shape is equal to the perimeter minus twice the width divided by 2. And so that's how we solve for L there. Going down here, let's say it wants us to solve for B, that's actually called B sub 1 when it's below, and it's above, it's to the power, right? So of course that's in the way. Anyway, so I want to solve for this. I have to get this by itself. But it's being multiplied by a half, and it's within this parentheses here. So what I need to do is think about it. What would you do first? We could distribute this, and that would put them both over under 2. And then you could subtract them over to the other side, and then you'd have to multiply again. Or I can just get rid of this half right away. And you should remember that to get rid of a fraction, you do its reciprocal. So opposite of 2 over 1, or 1 over 2 is 2 over 1. And that would cross those out and just leave you 1. So actually I would multiply by 2 over 1, or just 2 here, which gets rid of that. And that's done to this side of the equals, so I don't have to do anything with that here. But then I also have to do it to this side of the equals, 2 over 1 or 2. So now my equation becomes this, 2a equals, now this half is gone because I multiplied a half times 2 over 1. And because there's nothing here now, I can drop those parentheses and make it b sub 1 plus b sub 2. And then my directions say solve for b sub 1, so all I have to do is get rid of this side, and the opposite of adding b sub 2 is subtracting b sub 2, like that. And that would give you 0. And then we subtract b sub 2 here, and again there's no like terms, so that's going to become 2 times the area minus b sub 2 would equal base 1, or b sub 1. Okay, so all you're doing is solving for what they tell you to and getting rid of everything around it. So like we said before, this was the area of the triangle. So I might say solve for the height. Okay. So again, I have this half and I have b. And we can approach it a couple different ways, but I like the idea of getting rid of that half. So if I want to get rid of a half, like we said before, we multiply by 2. So when I multiply this by 2 over 1, it becomes a half times 2 over 1 is 1. But then I multiply by the 2 here also. So now this becomes 2a equals b base times height. H is height. Solve for h. So to get rid of the b, divide it. Both sides of the equals. So if I have the height is equivalent to twice the area divided by the base. And that's it. So all you're using is you're using your skills to solve 1- and 2-step equations. So you're looking for what it wants you to solve it for, and you eliminate everything else around it. And that's what we're going to be working on tomorrow. And then you have a test on Wednesday, so keep that in mind. So for your homework tonight, you're going to look in your skills book. This is page 341. You can't see it because it's out of the window, but it's page 341. And you're going to just do the problem set. You don't have to do the vocabulary. We just talked about that. And so this one is plugging in and solving, basically. And pay attention to, it says round to the nearest hundredth, and that's 2 places past your decimal, right? So this said 72 degrees Fahrenheit, so I plug 72 in for Fahrenheit, okay? Again, Fahrenheit. Celsius, you could plug in for Celsius, or you could solve for F, which would be good practice. So that's that. Here, you're going from standard form, and you need to convert it to slope-intercept form. So again, you're going to subtract the 4x and then divide by the 6 to get y by itself. So you're going to do those. And let's see. Then you're going to do it the other way, where you do this a lot in algebra, so this is a very important skill. We want to take slope-intercept and put it into standard form. Remember that standard form, which you had above, is ax plus by equals c. So essentially we have to get x and y on the same side. Remember, this has to be positive and they all have to be whole numbers. Of course they didn't make that positive, so actually this one isn't quite finished. They subtracted the 5x over and they were done, but actually the rule says that this 5 should be positive. So we really should multiply by -1 here, and that would make that 5x minus y equals -8. Okay, so you're moving all of those. So this, all of them, you have to move the x over. Okay, and like this one, if it's a fraction, we would subtract the 2/3 over. So we have -2/3 x plus y equals -6, and we have to make that a whole number. So to make this a whole number, I need to get rid of the denominator 3. So I'm going to multiply everything in this equation by 3. So then these cross off. I actually should do -3 to make that 2 positive. So these cross off, and the negative times the negative is a positive. So that's actually going to give me 2x. And then -3 times y is -3y. And then -6 times -3 is +18. So pay attention to these fractions. The fractions you got to multiply by the denominator. Okay? And the last one we're going to do is we're going to save that for tomorrow. So you are going to do 2 through 18 even. So that's 9 problems. However, make sure you pay attention to the examples, show your steps, otherwise you won't be getting homework credit tomorrow. Okay, so show your steps, and even on these, show your steps. So that starts on page 341, and it goes to 343, and you're going to do 2 through 18 even. Okay? Have a great night.